I recognized in my 30s that I can't be in a company that I don't own or I don't run
Mm,
because I'm thinking and acting a lot faster than most people can even contemplate. And it
mm,
makes people uncomfortable. And so
wow.
I can't be a number two because the number one can't keep up.
And your journey as a founder. I know that's a big question already, so feel free to share anything about you and your journey.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it's awesome to be here, Christy. I would say we're all got our own unique stories. Nobody's more special than anybody else. And that's what we've all got to realize. It's like when you see somebody walking down the road, give them a second because they may be having a terrible day. They may be, things could be not right in their life. So, I think, have a little bit less judgment and a lot more empathy.
Right. Agree.
With that said, I mean, my story, I know one thing for sure. My story and journey is the best day some people ever have in their lives. So when we think that we are going through hell, we don't even recognize the pain and suffering other people come through. So I think that's just kind of level set, Christy. I mean, I was raised in Ireland, born in Belfast. My street was set on fire. We fled Ireland as a kid. I'm 9. I don't even remember anything. I'm 9 months old. My dad's Protestant. My mother's Catholic. In the 60s, there was a lot of tension, a lot of rioting, a lot of murders. And so we were in the middle of that religious war. I didn't recognize any of that, but that's kind of the system that I came into. And then, unfortunately, my mother passed away when I was 9 years old, and I was one of 5 boys. She was 29, ovarian cancer, just decimated, and I saw it in front of me. So when I think about my challenges in business and life, many of them pale to seeing, the most beautiful one in the world just wither and die. So I kind of always put things into context. And so, when I have a challenge in my business life, it doesn't equate to my worst 100 days in my life. And that's always about perspective. It's about, when you're in the middle of something, you just got to keep going and you got to have belief you're going. So I'm kind of weaving in my story. Hopefully this makes sense. At 15, I left home. My dad had remarried. He married an alcoholic. She was an abuser. And for every night for 6 years, we got the living hell kicked out of me. I protected my brothers. It was an awful, destructive, unbelievable, chaotic and violent life. And, I was just there to protect my brothers and did whatever it took to survive. And that's one of the things that I think is translatable to later on in life. You learn to do whatever it takes. We're all going to face adversity. It's our decision. Are we going to make it or not? If you choose that you can't make it, you're right. If you choose you can make it, you're going to have a great time and it's going to be a much more enjoyable life. And that's how I choose to look at some of my traumatic experiences, the learning, growth, fueling machines that you just excel and want to do more. So anyway, at 15, I leave home. I'm homeless. I'm living in a park in the bottom of a bush. It's awful. And then I go and work for one of my family friends, and I learn and by the way, when I say I go to work, I walk 6 miles to go to work because I had no money. And then I would walk back until I got my first pay. I did everything. My taxi or my Uber were my 2 legs. And so, I again, do whatever it takes. I didn't know how to cook fish and chips. I started off scrubbing the tiles and peeling 50-pound bags of potatoes by my hand, 250 pounds of potatoes. I talk about carpal tunnel. Anyway, so I learned that, with application, with hard work, you can survive and then you learn how to thrive. So that was my earlier life. Then, luckily, We opened a grocery store. We opened a butcher's store. We opened the first video store in the north of England. And I managed all those businesses at 17. I didn't have a degree. I had no qualifications. I left school. I had nothing. But I had an ability to put the time in, learn, and that's another issue, never stop learning. And then I've applied that in my life, and I've obviously evolved, and I've got, went back to college and got my MBA, which is another story about never letting people, you never let people define you. We're into this world where, why do we think there's 8 billion people in the world? Why do we let one person's point of view change how you operate? It's crazy. Okay, so I get a bad review on Google, or I get this, or somebody doesn't like me because, he's a CEO, or, he's not perfect. I don't care. You got to make sure you're not a victim of your circumstances. You're a choice of the decisions that you make. That's the most important thing. So, and I will get rid of that. So that's kind of me. Then I joined PepsiCo. I had the awesome opportunity to open up Pizza Huts in England, managed a team of high quality leaders, and that made me think about, if I'm going to excel in this business world, I got to go back and get educated. And so I went back and got my MBA, and I got my MBA again. Another lesson, I think, what I'd like to communicate today is, I'm in England. I'm 25 years old. I'm running a large business, hundreds of millions of dollars of business. I'm applying for the MBA schools, and everyone's rejecting me. Everyone. And my wife's on a plane to Germany. She's heading up PepsiCo Europe for operations and training. And I call her for some sympathy, saying, I've got another rejection. And she said, Des, stop complaining. Do something about it. And it's like, we sometimes need tough love. It's not always about, hey, what can I do for you? It's like, okay, so you got to know, what are you going to do? So what I did then was I stormed down into, I wanted to throw the phone out through the window first. Didn't do that. Then I did a little bit of internal road rage, didn't do that. But then I stormed off to London, drove down to London, went to the MBA, the American College in London. It's in my book, actually, my first book, 15 Minutes of Shame, where I lay this out, and basically said, I want to join your MBA program. And the dean, very gracious, said, well, some people aren't academically right for this. It's a lot of vigor. You might not be eligible, and it might hurt your feelings. I said, I don't care about my feelings being hurt, because I only got one feeling, just as a joke. But I said, why don't you just test me and see if I'm going to test aptitudinally right? And I did the test, aced them. 2 years later, I get magna cum laude. I'm the case study for the UK the American university study around the world as their poster child for people who should be in this program. And again, you got to get used to rejection in this world. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to think you got a great idea. But what do you think? And you've got to go forward. And if it's a good enough idea and you've got enough commitment, and it really does make a difference, then you go for it. The other thing is, just make sure that you've had the intellectual vigor for your ideas. If you're, what the world doesn't need, Christy, in my world, is another company that opens up who's mediocre. Oh, let's open up this mediocre solution. It's going to do mediocre things to do mediocre outcomes. What a yawn that is. Get away from that. So you got to really stretch your ideas. So if we're thinking about, incrementalism is great if you're continuously improving in your life. Incrementalism is not great if you're trying to do new things in different markets. We don't incrementalize ourselves to get Netflix, or we don't incrementalize ourselves to get, the next iPhone, or the first iPad, or whatever that is, or the first technology that Nike came out with for sneakers. It's about having something that's better, special, unique, and different. So that's kind of hopefully answers
Yeah.
I am and what I do, and kind of what's driven me to pursue with a passion business, which I love. For me,
Right. Yeah.
I could read every day a new business case and I'd be happier than anything. Learning and evolving.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story. Wow. That's huge, you know? I mean, you suffered loss, you know, your mother, you were a homeless person, and you know, you did work like that other people wouldn't have not, you know, have not taken, because for them it's probably just hard work, you know, like lifting potatoes and all that kind of stuff. So I guess my follow-up question based from what you shared is, how did you deal with your traumatic experiences in life? I know you're a very resilient person, but what helped you heal from those traumatic experiences? Or do you feel like you have not really fully achieved healing from those experiences, because it is helping you become more, you know, resilient?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, nobody want. I mean, I don't want anybody to go through what I did. And by the way, I keep start as I said at the beginning. My worst days is somebody else's best days. So,
Right. Yeah.
but I wasn't a 9-year-old philosopher. I was a young kid trying to survive. And when you're trying to survive, you do things differently. I didn't think about, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow? I'm thinking I can't let my brothers get beaten to hell by a drunken. So my goal was right in front of me. I was focused. I knew what I had to do to survive that moment. So you know, I would say I've used my ability to adapt to every situation. So if it's adversity, bring it on. If it's a challenge, bring it on. I don't believe there's a business situation that I can't make better. I can't fix everything, but I can make everything better to a degree. And so it's that mentality that you go in with. So for me, it was around I'm going to survive. I had this idea that I was going to be a professional. We call it football player. You call it soccer player here. I wanted to be a professional soccer player, and then I realized the only thing I had missing was ability. So I
Mm.
wasn't good enough for it. But then I got into, you know, thinking about business at an early age, and I think to me it was the it's like learning. I think my MBA set in me a fuse about never stop learning. It's
Mm.
only got better and stronger as the years go. And I think my childhood trauma and challenges have just given me a resilience that I can overcome whatever happens. I'm not
Right.
looking for trouble, but I'm going to solve it when it comes. I'll give you an example. So I've now left the fish and chip shop, the video store. I'm about 19 years old, and I buy my first business. It's a caravan, a food truck. Before
Mm.
food trucks were out, I'm a little bit older, so I'm talking about in the mid 80s. I get my food truck. And on my first day, I'm going to this big fair with my younger brother. And it's like thousands of people are coming to a speed track. So I'm driving my truck and I crash it straight in to a lamppost. So the day one of my new business, I've only done the operations as a dry run. I've never sold one product. I'd sold my clothes. I'd saved up some money, but I'd also sold my record machine, which I was, you know, music machine that I was very proud of, to get this truck. I was in a lot of debt. So then I had to sell the rest of my possessions, and I was homeless again, sleeping on my friends' couches until I could actually get more money to get going again. And I joined a company called Wimpy Balls that Burger King bought. And then I got into the professional corporate business. So again, you know, a lot of people would have said, "Oh yes, that's pretty tough. I've got nowhere to live again, and isn't my life really sad and miserable?" And yes, it was. but it was a temporary thing. I believe, if I go to bed sad, I usually wake up happy the next morning. It's a happy drug. It's like I got a switch that says, yeah, I go to bed tired. I wake up the next morning, I feel energized. I don't know why. I don't want to lose that. And I think, to me now, what I classify as I'm getting older and thinking about, next steps and everything is, my ambition in life is lift others up, make a difference, be somebody who people want to work with and get empowered by and inspired by. And also, listen to it all before you think about it, is I want to die young, as old as possible. I don't want to let the old man in. So I want to keep fit mentally, physically, spiritually. I want to make sure I eat right. I want to make sure I get rid of things like alcohol, or very minimal. It's not a drug that I need. I used to need it every day. Don't need it. Don't want it. I might have it on an occasion. That's it. But it's not part of my daily routine. My daily routine is fresh. It's about what you put in your body, what you think about, be positive. You can't be all those things if you don't get 7-8 hours of sleep. I used to live on 4 hours of sleep. I don't know how, but for decades. I used to think it was a drug. It was great. But no, you lose things. Now it's, I want my sleep. I know that this is a marathon of life, and you got to treat it like an athlete going through all the various stages. I'm not 20 anymore, even though I think I am. And I want to act like I am at the age that I am appropriate. So all those things are very important.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wow. Okay. So you joined PepsiCo and you also joined Wimpy Boss.
Yep.
And so at what point did you realize that you don't want to work for people and you want to start your own business?
Yeah, well, when I started at Pizza Hut, which was part of Pepsi, I was the manager of the year for the UK. So it was great accolade. And then my boss told me I would never be an area manager. I was not capable of being anything other than a manager. And I loved being a restaurant manager. And anybody who's a restaurant manager out there listening, go guys, love the role. But I wanted to be a CEO. I wanted my own company. And so what I realized when I was less than 30, I was at 7-Eleven running their multi-billion-dollar business. And I wanted to be my own guy. I wanted to be founder, CEO of a company. And so I left the, multi-billion-dollar 7-Eleven organization to run a little company in South Dakota, a $19 million company that we turned into a $300 million company in 3 years. So I look at it as being CEOs of a private equity group. You are a founder of those companies. You're going in and you're starting up and you're turning them around. Not a classical founder role. I've done that later. But I've always thought to myself for the last 25 years I operate like a founder CEO. I come in, I invest, and I'm betting on myself that these businesses are going to excel. So, and that was always ingrained in me. I've got a picture on my wall here. It's young man in a hurry, and it was Whitbread's 250th anniversary, and it's got me on a little motorbike saying this guy's got a future CEO's contract in his briefcase. And so I always had that vision. It was always what I was aiming for. And I've had the pleasure of doing it, 9-10 times now.
And do you know where that vision came from? Because, you work for big companies, and then even though, while working for those companies, you were acting like you're the founder and CEO because you really do your best, to grow those companies. And so even though, during that time that you're employed, you're acting as like the founder and CEO, doing your best, what was lacking during that time that you wanted to have your own business?
I always like to, I think that one of the things that gives me a massive step differentiator than anybody else is I like to think that I think quicker and but I can execute faster. It's not just about how good your idea is. I've got to tell you, I don't want to see another 200-page PowerPoint. I want to see action. I want to see a 10-page PowerPoint that leads to something. There's a lot of smart people in this world who can't get stuff done. So I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to be navel gazing and doing a 3-day, 3-weekend strategy session to change the color of a label. We need to move faster. There's certain things that should just be done with speed. There's certain things that should be thought out. So, what I wanted to get out of this was, I recognized in my 30s that I can't be in a company that I don't own or I don't run, because I'm thinking and acting a lot faster than most people can even contemplate. And it makes people uncomfortable. And so I can't be a number 2 because the number 1 can't keep up. I got to be in charge. You got to have different guys in different roles in their life. So I'm all about, we lead, we work fast. I've just taken on a company, Raw Foods. It's about living nutrition. This is week 5. We're launching 3 new products next week or in the next couple of weeks. That's in 5 weeks. That would take somebody 6 months to do. That would take somebody a year to do, maybe 2 years. We've laid out a strategy on living nutrition, what we're going to mean and do for the industry. How are we going to differentiate and be better? People, the speed of change has to be exponentially quicker, Christy. Look at the Fortune 500 in 1930 was shelf life of the company's lifespan was 75 years. 75 years. A Fortune 500 company now in its current guise is less than 15.
Wow.
It's sped up 4 times. You've become, your relevance does not stick. You've got to be nimble. You've got to adapt. And that's why, 10 years ago, I set up Hague Enterprises. We've invested in 50 plus companies so far. I've served on many of their boards. I mentor many of the founders to this day. I'm close friends with many of them. And it's about how do you add value? So I have been a founder of, Hague Enterprises. We launched the Thinking Academy about a year and a half ago with 19 very powerful CEO and founders who have been there and done it. So I've got a training program on my second book, Think Your Way to the Top, 52 weekly exercises. And we've got the former president of Walt Disney Retail, Tom Park. You got the former president of the Limited, former CEO of the Limited, former president of Chico's, the Fortune 5000 9 times founder in AI, and so on and so on. These people are coming together to give back. So that's all about a founder's mentality, where I'm not coming in and just throwing money at things recklessly, but growing strategically. So it's just about, so I wear my CEO hat and I wear my founder's hat on each day. And it just keeps me fresh and new.
I love that. So right now you are the CEO and president of Raw Foods. Right. And you also have investment companies. You invest in companies, 50 companies. And then you have the Thinking Academy, you mentioned. Are those like everything that you're doing right now? Is there anything else? I just want to know what you are currently doing business-wise.
I'm on the board of Green Giant Fresh, the 6th largest. If you think about iconic statues in a status in American culture, the Green Giant is number 6 out of everything, So I'm on their board. I'm on the board of a hospitality technology company called iTattoo, who are doing, working with, they're going to be launching with concerts around the world where you can go in and get a temporary tattoo on if you're a child or you're a kid and you want to extend the moment. Also on the board of a modular design, the leading modular design company called Iconic. a great company out of New York, up in upper state New York. Fantastic people, and that's it. That's about all my dance card can take.
That's a lot already. Wow, you're amazing for taking all those things, working on those things. Okay, so I know you've experienced a lot in life already, but when it comes to business, what would you say was or is your biggest challenge, and how did you overcome, or how are you overcoming that specific challenge?
Well, I think every business I've been in has different challenges at different times. So, from one of the most challenging assignments that I got was launching TurboChef technologies. So TurboChef, you might not know them, but if you went into a Starbucks or a Subway and you see that little oven that heats things up really quickly.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm familiar with that brand.
Okay. Well, I launched that brand, and we got it out of a guy's garage in Dallas. It's now a $1 billion brand. And, we went to all the normal people, the Starbucks, the Pizza Huts, the McDonald's. I went to all the leaders and shared, and everybody was rejecting no, no, no. And then Subway was the first major brand that took it. We went into all of Puerto Rico, 400 stores. Then we went into Starbucks, and now it's in every Safeway, and it's in every single, it's in most restaurant and hotels around the world.
Yeah.
All I got was no, 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 and no. That was my but again, it's like Winston Churchill, you got to go from rejection to rejection with no loss of optimism. So that was one. And then, I would also say that very challenging to go into 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven had 7 guys in 8 years before me in my role, and nobody was succeeding. And I go in there with full confidence that I'm going to succeed, and we did some great things. We launched, the fresh food program to a level that it's never ever previously attained. So I think that's my view would be every business has different things. Is it marketing? Is it strategy? Is it operations? Right now, the way that I look at every business and have done for years is the number one opportunity that every business has is you can't get enough good talent. Talent, people, always the best. So my model is a 4-step process. So it's talent, people will produce the right service. With the right service, you drive the right sales. And with the right sales, you drive the right profit. So it's people, service, sales, talent. And so I love what Steve Jobs said. She who has the most talent wins. Then has the opportunity to win, I should say. And then it's about how do you focus that talent? How do you empower them? If you're bringing in super talent, and then you are basically telling them what to do and micromanaging them, what a terrible hire.
Right.
So my view is getting the right people, laying out the right strategy, getting the right alignment, and then really driving the metrics of service, sales, and profit. And you can start when you're in a turnaround situation. You sometimes have to start with profit because you're running out of money. You have to make decisions that are tough, not right, they're tough. You just have to make them. But usually if you want to get long-term sustainable growth, it's always about getting the right talent, training the right talent, and empowering them to do just unbelievable things. And so I think that's a universal thing.
Okay.
Obviously, right now, there's this whole hubbub about AI is going to destroy the world, and morally conflicted, and We got, where does, who's guardrailing the AI and of the AI inspectors inspecting them? Feels like a Will Smith. If you watch Enemy of the State, great film, by the way. It was brilliant. But it was like, who's monitoring the monitors? So there's a lot of conversation about that with AI, and it's all legitimate. But my view is the companies, like I'm thinking about complete industries are going to be leveled, knocked down because of AI. Think about it. If I'm in the consultancy business now of one of the big four, when I hired them in, they'd bring a team of 30 people. They'd all come in with their laptops. They'd all be clacking out reports. They'd come back to me in 4-6 weeks. They've taken all my data. They've come back with it. They've got all these spreadsheets and PowerPoint slides. It's cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions.
Yeah.
Well, I can do that in AI in 15 minutes now. Right. Now, you could argue, is it at the same level? And there could be some conversation, but I would say industries like that have got to be really fearful of AI. So they've got to think about what insights can they bring that AI can't do? How are we going to evolve our model? For example, I can get on AI, chat. I can have my little conversation with Chat GPT, and he can put a he or she, whatever you want to call it, my machine can tell me, help me with my strategy for positioning of any of my new brands in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's how do we use that to become even faster, more nimble? Darwinism was always about the survivor is not the strongest, it's the ones who can adapt the best. So how are we using AI to adapt to be the best?
Right.
How are we doing that for our intelligence? How are we using it for consumer insights? How are we using it for product development? There's a lot of things that we can smartly use that we can take advantages of.
Right.
And I think the other biggest challenge is, when are you going to learn to say no? There's you have infinite possibilities in life. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. Right. So how do I decide what are the 5 investments that I'm going to make in the next year or 2 years or 3 years? And I have to look at 500 to get to 5. That's usually the math. For every 100 things I see, I like one of them. So you've got to learn to say no. Yeah, it's going to get me a single, or it's going to get me a double. But what's going to get me the home run that's the conundrum. You can't just do home runs. Even the greatest, it's 0.4. The greatest of all time. They swing and miss 6 times out of 10. Think about it that way.
You're right. Wow.
So we've got to think about how do you apply that into, my challenges of seeing opportunities they pass my desk every hour. You can't do everything, so you've got to have a good filter. Yeah, and I always tell people my way is I think I'm a smart guy, but there's people smarter than me. I like to think I work hard. There's people who work harder than me. So it's about how do you combine to maximize your strengths, and it's about using your time most proficiently, getting down to saying I would be no good trying to be a heart surgeon tomorrow. So don't try. I'm in business. I keep in my lane. I know what I'm good at. I know the businesses and sectors I'm good at. And when you stray out thinking you know things because we're the smartest people, and that is an obstacle that you sometimes fall in love with your own headlines, that's when you have to stop yourself. Because then you believe that you really do know how to be a heart surgeon.
Right.
And I probably would faint just looking at that thing. But so it's about just that. It's about self-awareness, I suppose. And they're the things that are really important to me, Christy. And hopefully that's going to help with your guests, with your listeners as well.
Yeah, it's great perspective. And thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I know you kind of mentioned Steve Jobs already, but were there any books, mentors, or people who influence how you think about business or
Yeah.
relationship
Well,
today?
I wrote my book, and not that I'm plugging my books here, Christy. This is my second book. I talked about it, Think Your Way to the Top.
Mm-hmm.
And in my book, there's 52 thought exercises. It's not weeks, it's like challenges for people to think about. So, okay, what does whatever it takes means to you, Christy? I'm going to lay out what it means to me, and I'm going to give you examples of my own experiences and then of other people's experiences that I've read about. So in my book, there's 3 to 4 books that I recommend in each one of those chapters. So there's 200 books that I would recommend that you would read. The things that I tell you that top of mind that really had profound impact on my career was The Innovator's Dilemma by Christensen. And basically talks about Moore's law and Metcalfe's law and the law of disruption. And I use that to commercialize Turbo Chef, which put me on the map, that got me going into these big corporations. I like The World is Flat by Friedman. It thinks about the advancements of civilization. What is our 5.0, place? Leading by Wandering Around is also great. Leading with Laughter. These are really, books that spoke to me a very visceral level, an emotional level. Wow, that is just magic. Put that into the box. I'll go back to other things. I think we should be reading, everybody who has done anything meaningful, their autobiography. Estee Lauder, Henry Ford, Napoleon, Alexander, Queen Elizabeth, Martin Luther King, JFK. You just keep going down. Lincoln, just Washington, but also get a global perspective. Gandhi, Confucius, Mao. You learn from bad guys as well, Stalin and Lenin, and sometimes it's what not to do is more important than what to do.
Right.
Working with the bad leader, I think you get more things about what you'll never do.
Right.
I mean, people, I'll never ask somebody to ever do a role that I wouldn't personally do. Nobody needs to cater to me. Be low maintenance and high in spirit is kind of how I want to operate. So I think the autobiographies are important, but also be a student of life. I can still remember 1984, and I see the Steve Jobs computer smashing the computer screen for the first time. We Few, the Misfits. Then I saw Richard Branson same year launch Virgin Airlines. The English were pretty stiff at times, serious. This guy launched an airline with a parrot on his shoulder, with a pirate patch and a peg leg. It was fantastic. These commercials, they'll reverberate through time, in my opinion. And it's funny when you get to the next generation, they'll say, "Oh, did you hear this music that's on Stranger Things?" Yeah. And it's this Kate Bush running up the hill. That was a classic in the 80s. These people are hearing it just for the first time. So I'm not saying, it's not good to be young, of course, but it's like the more that you can learn, be a sponge. Never stop learning. They're the things that I think really super differentiate.
Yeah, I love that. And that's also one of the reasons why I have this kind of interview with founders, right? I get to learn from them and know their story and share their story to the world. Okay, well, thank you for sharing those books, and the fact that you remember the title of the books and what they are about. That means you really like those books and they're very influential to you.
No, and I would encourage people, obviously buy my book, please, but in those, there's 200 book references in there, maybe 150 to 250 that are worthy of being read. And I reference them all and I quote them all. throughout the book. So there's a lot of great quotes there that people can. It's about galvanizing ideas. I suppose if I was leaving you with a couple of things is, don't Bigfoot on somebody else's dreams. Don't come in there and squash them. Be somebody who lifts others up. And then always know this: people can care about your career, but nobody can care about your career as much as you. People who come to work for me, I'll guarantee them they'll be developed, they'll be better, and they'll be stretched. And they'll hopefully have a lot of good fun and make money. But they will always need to care about them more than I do, our own personal careers. And then finally, nobody gets to tell you what you are and who you are and what you think. We're not getting put through a process factory here. Have belief in yourself, and you can succeed if you believe you can, and you work hard enough to do that. And that's where the rub lays. It's like, okay, what does hard enough mean? It means that you put in the work, and when you're tired, keep going. Sometimes it's not about if you want a 9-to-5 life, don't expect to be the 1%er. If you want to be the best of the best, think about it. I think Johan Cruyff said this. He's a great soccer player for Holland, probably one of the best in the world generationally at his time. He was the Ronaldo or Messi of his time, or the Pele or whatever. And he said, I could touch the ball 1,000 times, and still I need to touch that. I need to do that. It's still not perfect. It's constantly honing your skill. But I hope that my insights are motivational and will inspire your readers and listeners to do great things.
Yeah, I love everything you shared. Thank you for sharing your story. Okay, so where can people find you online?
Go to deshague.com for my email. That's my website. Go to Des Hague on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, HagueEnterprises.com for my ventures and investments, and just Google me online, I suppose, or whatever you can do.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Des. I will include your book recommendations, including your book and your social links to the article into the show notes as well. But thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.